All right, so we are going to be painting whisper trees. And these colors right here is actually just 2 colors. These are whisper trees, which means that we are going to be using the black and the gray. So we're going to take our paintbrush or a dropper. We are going to make a couple piles of water. And then we are going to roll our brush in that black, deposit that into a pile, rinse your brush out to where it's clean, and roll your brush into your gray, deposit that gray. And that is all you need from this palette. You set that aside. For your whisper trees, we are going to be pulling from these 2 colors only on this paper. I'm going to rotate my palette around so you can see me pulling from these colors. And we are going to paint on this paper right here. All right, so I'm going to get my clean brush with my napkins right here. I'm going to pat my brush dry so I'm not depositing more water, and I am going to pick up some of this gray. Now the next step in me picking up some of this gray on my brush is that I'm going to start drawing the very faintest tree outline. So I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to paint the tree with a line going up and getting thinner as it gets to the top. Then I am going to take what paint I have left on my brush, and I'm going to tap my paper just a little bit to pull off too much of that paint. And then I'm going to zoom so you guys can see exactly how to do this pattern. We are going to be doing a stippling motion back and forth to create this pattern without trying to make it perfect. We are not trying to make it perfect. It's kind of like a broken up zigzag back and forth. I just need 10 minutes.
There's bored out of his mind. He's asking me every second.
I'm recording a video. 10 minutes, okay? You can take a napkin, tap it to pull away any extra water, and it will create that light whisper feeling of the picture instead of having too much water deposited. We don't want it to be perfect trees. We want to just create the whisper illusion of a pine tree in a misty meadow. I have not gone and picked up more paint on my brush. I am just working from what's on there. If you need to pick up more paint, barely tap your brush back into the paint water and continue. But this does not need to be super dark. It needs to be nice and light gray. It is a back and forth motion to create those branches without lots of pigment on our brush. After my first layer on this tree, if I want to go back in and make it darker, I can either pull from gray and keep it a very nice neutral tree, or I can add some black. I am only going to work from gray on my tree, and I'm going to add just a little bit more darker tones of gray, not everywhere, just a little bit on each branch, redipping, to give it a little bit more depth, but still maintaining that airy quality. We are doing a zigzag motion back and forth, leaving lots of spaces in between. if I added a little bit of black, it needs to be towards the base. That is your first tree. For your second tree, it is going to be this one right here. This is going to be an ink blot tree. What we are going to do for the ink blot tree is that we are going to pull from our diluted pile of black, dip your brush in your black, and then you are going to paint a very basic blot of a tree that has no rhyme or reason, leaving some space in your tree for gaps where the leaves might not have grown, or maybe they have somewhat fallen off. And that's it. If it looks too dark, you can take your tissue, pull out some of the color. This creates a farther, deeper illusion of a whisper tree. You can take your brush, you can dip it back in your paint just a little, and then you can touch it along the edges of your treetop if you want to create a little bit of dimension along the edge only. As you ink blot the edges, if you realize it is too dark, you can always come back in with your tissue and pull out some, or your Q-tip, whatever you want. Now we're going to leave that. We are going to switch and keep our brush nice and clean. We are going to go up here to our gray color, pull some gray onto our brush, come back down here, and we are going to create a V shape, V, and then we're going to drop it down to a Y. You want 2 branches coming down on this side. Try not to make it too perfect. Create your V with your shape going that way with 3 branches coming up. Try to keep your lines thin if you can. You can add a couple more leaves if it feels right. And then as your tree comes down, the stalk of your tree is going to get thicker. Remember, these are whisper trees, so it doesn't need to have a giant trunk of a tree like a locust or a maple. We want to keep it very, very light. And that's it. We are going to walk away from that tree and call it good. To create a whisper tree, we do not want to have too much detail. It needs to be very light and very basic. For our third tree, this one, we are going to do a mixture of both. We will start with this color. Load your brush. We are going to do 2 lines, one taller than the other. This one is going to be a much more barren type tree to where it has lost most all of its pine needles. We are then going to go into the black, pick up some black, and we are going to push our branches up. These little leaves are all that's left hanging on this tree. Not much is there. We are stippling it. You can paint a few of your branches that are still there. Not very many. We don't want too many going towards the base. This is a very dead and dying tree. You can then take your tissue or your Q-tip and blot it quickly, and that pulls up a lot of that color. Now we're going to go to our gray, and we are going to really, really water this one down. We don't want a lot on our brush. This tree is farther back, so we are going to make it a lot more neutral in the back. We're not going to overthink this tree behind. Paint a couple of those little branches, but this one is farther back. And that is that.